This is your 2-minute warning.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fine.
But it's not something that we
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah, that might be. We charge hourly for work, and then we charge higher hourly when we go inspect something. Does that come with cars? So you don't have to answer that, that's just an example.
That's a good question. Okay, we'll get that. Yeah.
Just give you a call.
Okay, we'll call this regular meeting of the City Council to order. If you will all please rise as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we have public participation via Zoom and in person for those who are curious about that. And we'll start with a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Gurney,
Here.
Councilmember Wellender,
Here.
Councilmember Dean,
Here.
Mayor Lowe.
Here.
Thank you.
Ms. Ferrar-Rivas is not here. She is ill. Turn off your phone and your watches. That's a new thing people are adding now. Turn off your phone and your watches, because the watches also make sounds, as I have been led to believe. There is no report from closed session. No action was taken. I entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I am going to request that item 8.1 be pulled and set for May 17th, a time certain, so that we can entertain more discussion with planning commissioners and so forth on this item. So with the exception of 8.1, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve. I second.
Okay, moved in second. Is there any discussion?
That was the 17th, May 17th.
Yes,
7th.
May 17th. Okay, seeing none, clerk will call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Gurney,
Yes.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Thank you very much. At this point, we'll have comments from the public on anything that is not on the agenda. And you have 3 minutes, which we will politely tell you when it's over, but it'll be so polite you'll hardly notice. And I see someone from the public.
Hi, Lori Gallion, 434 Rosalie Drive here in Sonoma. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm here to say thank you for helping to approve, number one, the use of the plaza, because we have our historic egg hunt that is happening this Saturday. All children who are between the ages of 0 to 9 will be in the perimeters, okay? However, the ones actually hunting for the eggs will be just ages 3 through 9. We have a Peter Rabbit station, and we have wonderful baskets that you can win. And basically the countdown is, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and by 10:02, if we're lucky, there will be no eggs left in that plaza. There are hundreds of eggs, and it is quite a sight to be seen. So I would like to welcome those members of the public who would like to come. And again, we could not do that without your support. Seroptimist International of Sonoma Valley is the sponsoring group, nonprofit, and we are celebrating our 63rd year here in Sonoma this month. Thank you.
It's wonderful. Thank you. I don't fit in that age range, but I'm going to bring someone who might. Yes, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Stephanie Fine, Vice President of Sonoma Sister Cities Association, and I would like to invite everybody to participate starting April 21st through April 24th with a visit of our Italian sister city from Greve in Chianti, Italy. We're very excited to have these wonderful people return to us after a 10-year lapse, and we will be celebrating not just our 40th anniversary friendship, but also Greve in Chianti was the beginning of the Sustainable Local Organic City Program, the first city in the world to do that. The second city in the world to become Sustainable Local Organic was Sonoma, California. So we will be looking at everything sustainable, from sustainable farms to sustainable worms. We're going to be having wonderful events at the plaza, and of course, Mayor Lowe will be celebrating on the 22nd at City Hall at 11 o'clock in the morning, where a proclamation about our 40th year of friendship will be given to our guests. So I certainly hope that all of you will look at the calendar that we will be posting in the newspaper, and please feel free to come out and join us. It will be a wonderful celebration of international relations. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Anyone else from the public? Anyone on Zoom? Yes? Wonderful.
Yes, Mayor Lowe, I'm going to bring in Gil Latimer. So give me just 1 minute, Gil. You're in, Gil. Go ahead.
Gil, you're on mute. There we go.
Found it. Can you hear me now? Mm-hmm. All right. Gil Latimer, Grant Court, Sonoma Valley Cannabis Group. Good evening, City Council and staff. I'd just like to thank you for putting the RFP for the second dispensary on the April 19 agenda. We're very much looking forward to the discussion. We'll only add that our group has spent nearly 6 years now working toward reasonable access for everyone who lives in Sonoma and the Valley. We've got a couple of hundred members, and they include medical patients, adult consumers, attorneys, and local industry professionals. We can be considered subject matter experts. We know you have an excellent staff on which you can rely for important information, but we'd also like to let you know that we're always available if you have any questions on the topic, so please feel free to reach out to us anytime. And that's all I have to say. Have a good evening and thank you.
Going to bring in David Eicher.
Very good.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm sorry, can you hear me okay? I was getting an echo, sorry. Good evening, Mayor and council members. First of all, thank you for continuing the hybrid. This allows a lot more people to participate in local government, which I think is great. But anyway, the other things I want to talk about is for construction projects come before the city. In the conditions of approval, the city should include a construction management plan and a construction completion schedule, similar to the ones included by the Piedmont Planning Commission for substantial construction on residence there. I emailed the details to you on March 12th. If a project is not complete within the construction schedule, the city will have additional remedies, including possible fining the applicant for each day beyond the scheduled completion date. Minimizing the length of time of construction is especially important around the historic plaza and along Broadway, the gateway to the city. Also, Josette and I would like to thank you for putting the second dispensary RFP on the next city council meeting. We look forward to it, and thank you for listening.
Anyone else?
No, Mayor Lo.
All right. All right, I believe this concludes public comments. We're next on the agenda. We have meeting dedications, and I know Councilmember Ding has some that he'd like to share with us.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Lo. Today I have two dedicates. The first one, that is for Iris McVeigh. She passed away last week, and she was 96 years old. Not unexpected, but still we feel very sorry for her passing. And she has lived out in the city and the valley for the decades, and also personally I know and her families 4 or 5 generations in person. Second one is Paul Day. He is a former police chief in Sonoma. Paul Day. Yes, yeah. It is with the profound sadness that we learn of the passing of the retired the former chief of police of the Sonoma and the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant Paul Day. Paul passed Saturday afternoon following a long battle with a Parkinson's disease that stole away his quality of the life a day at a time over the span several years. Paul passed peacefully at home at the age of 67, surrounded by the family and a few close friends. He is survived by his wife, John, and 2 daughters, Fiona and Kira. He was a U.S. Army veteran and served a near 30 years career with the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office. And during his law enforcement career, he served as patrol deputy sheriff and field training officer and a SWAT team member, backup up observer on the Henry 1 Marine Unit patrol sergeant and a patrol lieutenant, Windsor the police chief, and at the conclusion of his career, he served as a chief of the Sonoma Police Department here. It's an honor for us to the review, and we will miss him greatly. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any other ones? I'd like to dedicate this meeting to Mario Alioto, the voice of the Dragons. And any of you who have been to Arnold Field and watched a baseball game or just admired the field, you saw the work of Mario Alioto. I had a son on the baseball team, so I, obviously was over there all the time, and it's a great loss to all of us. Mario was 75 years old, and his family lives in Sonoma, and we'll be sending something over to them, telling them that we've dedicated to the meeting to him. Thank you. We are now at council members' reports and comments and any committee reports or anything that you were up to. This is the time that the public gets to hear what we do in our free time when we're not at these council meetings. So why don't we start with Councilmember Ding.
All right. During the past 2 weeks, I went to 2 meetings. The first one is the Sonoma Valley Groundwater Agency. Yeah, it's the first time after 3 years we got together, have the meeting in person, and we choose a place in the Moon of the Valley Water District office. basically we reviewed the New Year's and the budget, and the new budget we already started, and also we just updated and on the groundwater and the survey, and because after the last year and this year's and the big rain, it is good for on the groundwater level. Overall, our ground level and the situation, it's in a healthy condition, isn't okay. But we find out deep aquifers for on the Sonoma Valley that is, gotten a little bit serious, and it going down by each year and each 5 year. We are closely watching that. The last year was the first year for our county charge and the groundwater and the user. So basically, the last meeting, we just updated what's going on, how much money we can collect, what is our future plan. The second meeting I attended is the continuum of care that basically take care of the homelessness issue for each county, and we got a lot of the information from our consultant that is Andrew Hanning, also playing a big role for our the county level. And also he introduced so-called sub-regionalization program, basically based on an advanced computer system model. We collect each cities, each areas, the resource, and gather together how to manage it, how to deliver this service product effectively and efficiently. That's my report. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And that's those are two very important committees. Thank you. Mr. Willander.
Thank you, Mayor. I did attend the acronym is WAC or the TAC, which I believe is the Water Agency Committee. I will not tell you that I was quite late. I was able to experience the adjournment, but I did catch the highlights, and I believe it may not be well received. There is a modest increase in water cost, but it's based on volume. And that was something that had been passed prior to my arrival. But that's a brief summary.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Well, let's see. I attended a 3-day Planning Commissioner Academy in Southern California with Patricia, and it was very informative. I have the utmost respect for our planning commissioners now, and I have no desire to be one. So, but it was informative, and I look forward to dealing with the issues as they come forth. Thank you.
So over the last couple of weeks, we had wonderful opportunities to kick off the film festival. And I managed to go to a lot of films while they were here, and it really was fantastic. The streets were filled, the people loved it. I've sent my congratulations to the team that put it together, but if I just can't even wait for next year's. It was absolutely spectacular. And, we had Sir Ben Kingsley here. And if you guys watch Succession, one of the actresses from Succession, so it was star-studded, and films were incredible. So very pleased to see that, especially in the Year of the Arts for Sonoma. We also had the reception for our alcalde, and I'd like to tell you more about that, but this is a PG rated event, so you'll have to find someone who was there, and over adult beverages they can tell you some of the things that were said about our alcalde, Mr. Lynch, and his previous occupations, etc. Anyway, it was quite entertaining. And then the other night we were pleased to give the Treasurer of the Year award to Jamie Love over at the Community Center. And if she's it was just amazing because obviously when you give an award to performers, guess what they do? They perform. And we had wonderful singing, we had a beautiful video, and and I want to just give big kudos to the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission, who just did an outstanding job with the event. So when you volunteer to be on a committee or a commission with the city of Sonoma, you end up doing some amazing things. So that was fantastic. And then I just wanted to let the council know, based on our conversations that we had at the last meeting, that I did write a letter to our representative, Assembly Member Cecilia Aguiar Curry, regarding the Brown Act, which we're going to talk about in the city attorney's report, just to let her know that we have some concerns about keeping the remote option available for many of our committees and commissions. So we'll know more about that when we hear the city attorney's report. So that's what I have to report. And with that, we'll move it over to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just have one thing that I know has been on people's minds. What's happening with Broadway and the safety, pedestrian safety? So, interestingly enough, what happened is when we drilled the holes to place the equipment for the pedestrian lighting, we ran into two problems. One was the holes were filled with water. Thank you, rain. That's making everything look beautiful, but the holes were filled with water. Secondly, we ran into a utility conduit. The staff has contacted the owner of the conduit, Comcast, and then they sent 4 people out, of course, to look at it. But they will be relocating the placement of the conduit to accommodate the pedestrian lighting equipment. We anticipate that these systems will be up and operating by July of 2023, so this summer. Once we get the water kind of dealt with and that conduit moved so we don't cut out everybody's Comcast internet and cables. That's where we are with that. And I thought the council and the public should know, since this has been a question I get asked regularly by both the council and the public. So that's where we are.
We're talking about by the intersection by Pete's. That's what people are referring to. Is that correct?
I'm not sure
On
if that's the
Andrews?
one we're going to have, but we're going to have others for sure.
Others as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. City attorney comments, are you going to reserve them for your report, or do you have others as well?
No, I'll just reserve it for my report. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. We have a couple of proclamations. The first one is the Week of the Young Child, and happy that to be able to recognize the Week of the Young Child. Unfortunately, the person that was going to receive the proclamation couldn't make it, but it is a proclamation that we have issued. This is the Week of the Young Child, and of course, I'm always sensitive to that, having worked with not such young children. They were high school, but my understanding is they started out as young children, and they probably started out much nicer than they were when I saw them in high school. But so enjoy them while they're young, and this is the week for them. But we do have a proclamation, and I believe is Zaira Vasquez here? Wonderful. And this is Sexual Assault Awareness Proclamation, very important. If you'd like to come to the podium and maybe say a few words about it, and then I'll present you with our proclamation.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
everybody for being here today. My name is Zaira and I'm here representing Verity. We want to thank you so much on behalf of the team of Verity. We are honored that Sonoma recognizes April as Sexual Awareness Month. And we couldn't do the work that we are doing if it wasn't for everybody here and all of your support. And we hope you'll join us this month for some of our events that we are hosting and some of our outreach efforts. And we just want to thank you guys again for this proclamation. I brought some little brochures and bracelets for everybody. I don't know who I should hand them to.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. I'm going to bring this down to you.
Okay.
proclamation from the City of Sonoma recognizing April 23rd as a Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And thank you so much for all the work that you do, and
Thank you.
we're very happy to partner with you.
Thank you so
I
much.
think there's a picture
Oh,
that's going to be
should I
taken
have-
as a, sure. It's a balancing act, we'll figure it out. Takes two. Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
for all your work.
Thank you.
That's important work. There's a lot of, sometimes when you just shine a light on something like this and just put it out there, and people will now be able to come forward and feel comfortable about sharing their experiences, and we can help them. And so thank you so much for that. Any comments or questions on any of the proclamations? No? Okay, very good. Thanks again. So now we are on to a presentation regarding the new teleconferencing options under the Brown Act, which has changed because of the termination of the statewide COVID emergency declaration. And a lot of people have been asking about this because they're not sure what it means. Does that mean we can't have meetings over Zoom, or we can, under which conditions, etc.? So I'm going to turn this over to our city attorney, who has a presentation for us. Thank you, Mr. Ruderman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for that introduction. I don't think I need to spend any more time introducing this item. It's important to remember where we've been, how we got here. This really is all about the way that life has evolved since the pandemic. So don't mean to elicit feelings of PTSD, but March 2020 was the governor actually suspended the normal Brown Act requirements that allowed local agencies to meet entirely remotely, including having the public attend remotely. And that was obviously to limit the transmission of COVID-19. By the middle of 2021, the governor started to slowly rescind those, and in response, the legislature passed in September AB 361, which is the rule, it's the law essentially that allowed us to continue with remote meetings. It required findings to be made every 30 days. We had those on consent, and it allowed council members and other members of public bodies to participate remotely during the declared state of a COVID emergency only. So the governor announced that he would be ending the statewide emergency at the end of February. He announced that in like October or something of 2022. There were a number of bills in the legislature where they discussed how and to what extent they would continue to allow remote meetings. And they settled on what is AB 2449, and we'll go over that in detail this evening. But it allows very limited remote meeting attendance. So once March 1st rolled around, the ability to use the AB 361, which is what we've been using for remote teleconferencing and meetings, ended. Essentially, that meant we went back to the way things were before COVID. And if you recall, before COVID, there was very little teleconferencing going on. Those rules, though, still apply. Those are called the standard of the traditional Brown Act rules. And AB 2449 applies now. So we'll go over those. It's important to understand that these rules apply to every Brown Act body. Okay, so that's going to apply to your city council. It's going to apply to the Board of Supervisors. It's going to apply to subordinate commissions of this city, its planning commission, its design review committee, etc. It's going to apply to regional agencies that you may sit on. So whether that is COC, whether that is Sonoma Clean Energy, which is a joint powers authority, the Transit Authority, all those agencies need to comply with the Brown Act. It does not apply to a body that the Brown Act doesn't apply to. So these so-called ad hoc advisory subcommittees, they're not governed by the Brown Act, so these rules aren't going to apply to them. They're not going to have to follow these rules in order to have a meeting. So now we live in a world where we've only got two options until the legislature hopefully makes some changes. So I'll go over these in detail, and I invite the council's questions as I go through. Standard teleconferencing. This is what existed before COVID. It still exists. That the nuance here is that when you as a council member want to appear remotely, you have to, we have to identify the location from which you're calling in on the agenda. Okay? So during COVID, you were all calling in from your house. You didn't have to write down your home address. Under the standard teleconferencing rules, you would. And that has to be on the agenda. And not only that, you have to post the agenda at every teleconference location. So you would have to post it at your house. You can call in or you can video conference in, it doesn't matter. In the old days, we didn't have video conferencing, so people just used that's why it's called teleconferencing, because they would just call in. All votes by roll call. A quorum of the body, so in this case the city council, would have to be teleconferencing from within the jurisdiction of the city of Sonoma. That doesn't mean that you all have to be in one physical spot. You technically could be at 3 different spots as long as those 3 of you were in the city of Sonoma. That didn't apply obviously during COVID. And importantly, all the locations have to be open to the public, so you have to allow the public to go to these remote locations and make public comment. This is why people don't want to do this usually with their home. A, we don't necessarily know if your home is ADA compliant, and B, you don't necessarily want any Joe Schmo to come in and use your home as a place for public comment. But this is the standard teleconferencing rules. Now, AB 2449 allows legislative body members to participate remotely, but it only allows them to do so if they have a just cause or an emergency circumstance. And these are defined terms in the Brown Act. An emergency circumstance is a physical or family medical emergency that prevents a council member from attending in person. Just cause is, as listed here, childcare needs of a parent, grandparent, grandchild, sibling, contagious illness, physical or mental disability, and travel while on official business of the city or another state or local agency. So not just travel, but official travel. And so if you meet one of these criteria, then you can call in via Zoom and participate in a meeting. That's the only way you can call in and participate in a meeting in a manner that doesn't require you to post the notice, allow people to come to your home or wherever you're calling in from. And I'll go over now sort of the differences between standard teleconferencing and AB 2449. So whether or not you have to have a quorum in the jurisdiction. So as I mentioned before, with standard teleconferencing, you have to have a quorum within the jurisdiction. So you can each be at a separate place within the jurisdiction. That's fine. But with AB 2449, you need to be there needs to be a quorum in one physical location that is open to the public. So this is not usually a problem for cities. It could be a problem for a JPA like Sonoma Clean Energy, for example. I know if Sonoma Clean Energy wanted to have someone from Sonoma call in from Sonoma Council Chambers, someone from Santa Rosa calling in from Santa Rosa, Windsor, Cloverdale, they could do that under the standard teleconferencing rules. But if they had one of their person who needed a just cause, they would have to all go into have a quorum in one physical location. So that's a nuance. That's interesting. With AB 2449, as I mentioned, you don't have to post the agenda at your teleconference location, so at your home or wherever you are calling in from. You do have to do that for standard. in terms of the location and the agenda, in standard teleconferencing, as I mentioned, each location where people are calling in from has to be on the agenda and it has to be publicly accessible. That's not true for 2449. So for 2449, you can zoom in from your home and you don't have to put that on the agenda, and you don't have to allow people to come to your home to provide public comment. You do have to provide an avenue for the public to call in and provide public comment. Standard teleconferencing, you can just use the phone. With AB 2449, the statute actually says that the council member who's calling in, or the member of the legislative body, has to appear by video and both video and audio. So you have to have a Zoom connection. You have to have your video on. You have to have your sound. Again, you don't need to allow public comment from that remote location in 2449, but you would in standard. Under AB 361, there was this provision where if the Zoom system broke down and people weren't able to provide simultaneous live public comment, you actually had to stop the meeting and you couldn't take any action. That applies to AB 2449. So if we're having someone call in because they have just cause and our Zoom functionality goes down and people can't provide public comments, we have to stop the meeting and we can't take any action until we get that fixed. That's not true for standard teleconferencing. Probably because when they made standard teleconferencing, it was all telephone and it was unlikely that you were going to have those kind of computer glitches. Although, fortunately, we've gotten over most of those problems with Zoom and whatnot. And then, interestingly, with AB 2449, there is actually a limit on how many times a council member or commissioner can use it, can invoke it to call in over Zoom. And I'll go over that in a little more detail. So how do you use standard teleconferencing? Well, usually the way I've seen this used, it's when a council member is on vacation, okay? They're in Hawaii and they're at a hotel. Hotels are ADA accessible. They're in the United States. We're pretty clear on that. You can post the agenda in the lobby of the hotel. You just ask the people. I've never heard of anybody having a problem with that. You leave your door open in your room. We put the name of your hotel and your room number on the agenda, and you have to allow someone, if somebody in Hawaii decides that they want to, talk about, commissioner appointments, you got to let them in, and they have to provide their public comment. It does require advanced planning because it has to be agendized, and you're going to have to get that notice posted at your hotel. So you're going to need to reach out to the city manager, the mayor, well in advance in order to arrange that. But it's certainly possible. How to use AB 2449? Well, I don't know anybody who's used it yet, but okay. You can use it if you have, so normally emergency circumstance and just cause, these things come up sort of last minute. We, however, post our agendas for regular meetings at least 72 hours in advance, and when we have Wednesday meetings, much more than that. Because when you use 2449, you have to allow simultaneous public viewing and input, and you have to identify on the agenda the ability to do that. That is going to be a prerequisite. The City of Sonoma does that. We always have our Zoom link on all of our meetings, so we're prepared to use 2449. If you guys are working with another committee or commission, a regional agency, and they don't do that, that's going to be an impediment to using it. So that's something that you'd want to talk to that other agency about if this was something that you thought you might be using. You also have to have that technical capability. And I know there's some agencies, I think maybe LAFCO doesn't necessarily have the ability to allow people to zoom in, which is odd considering we've had 3 years to figure that out. But and then okay, and then you need to contact probably the first person is the clerk or the city manager if you think you might have a just cause or an emergency circumstance, and work that out because there is a pretty detailed there's a bunch of hoops we have to jump through to do 2449. So here is a little synopsis of what those hoops are. You have to disclose the reason for your inability to attend to the council, to the legislative body. It can be a general description, 20 words or less. You do not have to disclose confidential medical information, but you do need to give enough information to be able to show that you have a just cause or an emergency circumstance. If it's a just cause, then that's it. You automatically can appear remotely. If it's an emergency circumstance, which is the one that says a family medical emergency, then you actually have to have the council approve your use, your zooming in. And there's actually a provision in AB 2449 that waives the normal rules for agendas, right? Normally, you can't do anything unless it's on the agenda. Well, AB 2449 has this special thing that says, well, if somebody needs approval for an emergency circumstance, the legislative body is allowed to act on that request at the beginning of the meeting without it being on the agenda. So that would have to happen. The other interesting thing about AB 2449, apparently there was concern in the legislature by some people that folks who were in their home were being unduly influenced by others that were in the home with the legislative body member. And so now AB 2449 says that when you're zooming in, you actually have to disclose whether or not there's anybody 18 or older in the room with you and what your relationship to that person is. And it actually says you have to do that before you take action. So technically, you may have to actually do that before every vote that you take. Probably if there's no change in who's in the room, then you can just say that. But that is an interesting nuance. And then the annual limit on use. So you can't use just cause more than twice a year. And you can't use a combination of just cause and emergency circumstances for more than 3 months or 20% of regular meetings. So if we have 24 meetings a year, that's basically 4 meetings total. So it's not that many. So that's 2 just cause and 2 emergency circumstances. It's a little bit different if you meet less than, I think, 10 or fewer times with your particular body. But those are the general outlines. So since you had so many questions during my presentation, I'm sure I'll get even more now.
All right. Thank you for that. Very helpful. And for those of you out there who are part of committees and commissions, this applies to you. So anyway, let's see if there are any questions from the council. I'm looking over at Mr. Wellender, please.
Just 3 questions and 1 comment. Please don't be offended if I don't find the things you find interesting.
No, I'm not offended by that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wellender? I've already learned that is the case. So.
I would love to get a copy of the PowerPoint so that I can actually have it as a reference. And then in the requisite for ADA access, does that include an ADA accessible bathroom? Or where does it stop?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think it's just your standard ADA accessibility rules. So it's unlikely that your home is going to be ADA accessible.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm not sure I know of any. Well, I take that back. I know one home that had a quadriplegic that had an ADA home. But so in reality, the idea of using it for a meeting like this. And then just for clarity purposes, my second question is just confirm. As long as the body has a quorum, an individual can be absent and work can continue on, correct?
I'm sorry, can you clarify that?
What I'm saying is that, we've created these to anticipate, for instance, vacation, And yet I know some people go on vacation and don't want to be bothered. So as long as the body has a quorum, it can continue on. That's
correct, yeah.
I
You
just-
need, the body needs a quorum in order to take action. So
Yes,
as long as you
yes.
don't deprive it of a quorum, then it can still continue.
Thank you.
It's good. Yeah.
I just, I want to bring up a couple things. One, I was at the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and Supervisor Linda Hopkins availed herself of AB 449. She had a child at home who was ill, and so she participated in that meeting remotely. It was, I know this looks like a whole lot of hoops to jump, but it really was quite easy to just have the supervisor participate remotely. She did bring up the point that if you have young children, as she does, that this may happen more than twice a year, that they get sick. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I mentioned this earlier in the council members' report, is that we did talk a little bit about this last meeting, and the letter that I wrote to our assembly member who chairs the local government committee of the state assembly is that we would really like a little bit more leeway, so that not so much for the city council, because we all live in the city, we all come here, that's fine. We have hybrid, people can talk on remote. We heard people do that this evening. But one of our commissions didn't have a quorum last month. And had they, either known that maybe they could have used AB 2449, or even in a better situation, they'd known that they could have met remotely just in general, we might have had a quorum for that committee and commissions. That's happening all over California. A lot of the commissions that we serve on, you heard Councilmember Ding talk about two of them today. We have to go to Santa Rosa for those meetings. They're held at the county seat, and they're not held here. And over 3 years, we've gotten quite used to meeting remotely, especially, with this last weather event we've had. Driving back and forth to Santa Rosa is not something we choose to do all the time, and would like some ability to do that. So there are some bills working their way through the legislature that would allow multi-jurisdictional committees and commissions and appointed commissions to work remotely. The TID committee, they were not so happy about meeting in person, and they're all here. So anyway, keep following this because we really want as many people as possible engaged in our processes. And a lot of people found out over the last 3 years that the upside of the COVID regulations were that they could be involved more in city councils and committees and commissions because they could do it from home. And so we don't want to go backwards in terms of the ability for the public to be involved and to sign up. We had people sign up for committees and commissions now to find out they have to come in person, and they're like, well, I didn't sign up for that. I've got little kids at home, or I take care of my mother, or whatever the story may be. So we're trying very hard to convince the legislature that to trust us that we can do it the old-fashioned way, which is Zoom. Anyway, thank you for that report. That was very thorough, and if Ron wasn't interested, I was, so that's okay. Very good. So we're moving on. Part 3 of a continuing series that we have here, and I've moved this up on during the council meeting so people don't have to wait so long. We have Lisa Jansen, who's going to talk to us about the City of Sonoma Community Services Providers. Thank you, Ms. Jansen.
So I'll keep this really short. Good evening, Mayor Lowe and City Council members. Tonight we have We have 3 entities presenting. This is 3 of 5 meetings that we'll be having over the next. We'll have 2 more coming up after this one, but we have 3 of our community partners here this evening. Tonight we have Stacy Morales, who is the executive director with Vintage House, and it looks like she has most of her board with her today and staff. And then she will be followed by Robert Demler, who's the executive director of the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation. It looks like he has some of his board members as well. And then Patricia Cullinan, the executive director of the Sonoma Valley Historical Society. And I think she has Laura Gallen here with her this evening. So with that said, I wanted to make one just quick correction. In my staff report, I did note that staff would be bringing back a resolution allowing the city manager to enter into a amendment or a lease agreement with Sonoma Valley Historical Society, and ta-da, we found it. It was done back in 2021. So that resolution will not be coming forward, but we will be finalizing that contract that was drafted, or the amendment that was drafted back in May of 2021. So with that, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite Stacy up here, Stacy Morales, the executive director, and then I'll be sitting over here in the audience. So if you have questions as after presentations, feel free to ask staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Morales, you're up. Welcome.
Well, now you know my name. I'm Stacy Morales, and I want to thank you, Mayor and council members, for the opportunity to provide an update on Vintage House today. So our mission for Vintage House is to help support, preserve, and enhance the quality of life of residents of Sonoma Valley as they age. We accomplish this by fostering well-being, connection, and a sense of purpose and enjoyment through opportunities for lifelong learning, personal growth, and support. All 3 of those, the learning, growth, and support, are really important. You really can't do one without the other to have a huge impact on the seniors. So to give you a little bit of history of Vintage House, in 1977, Jerry Casson was sitting at her dining room table talking with others and thought, we really need to have a place where seniors can gather and support each other. She was the first executive director, and she volunteered. And the first programs were held at the First Congressional Church. In 1983, we celebrated the nonprofit incorporation, and that is 40 years ago this year. So we'll be doing a lot of celebrating this year. In 1987, the lease was recorded with the City of Sonoma for the use of the property, which we are extremely grateful and very thankful. And in 1989, several people fundraised, including Robert Lynch, Rich Peterson, and Bob Stone, to actually build Vintage House. I moved to the area 5 months ago for this job, and I have a lot of experience visiting and helping senior community centers. This was an amazing opportunity because I've never seen one of this size in a community so supportive of a senior community center. So who do we serve? Well, we serve seniors 55 and above. If you're 54 and you walk in the door, we will serve you. So really all ages. But we're very inclusive. And what that means is financially, if somebody comes in because it is a membership organization, we do have scholarships available, so we're not going to turn people away because they don't have the funds to be able to participate. We have very inclusive programs. We have a Spanish class that wants to increase their Spanish ability, but then we also have another group of people who English is their second language, and we realize that if we intermingle those two, that really everybody's gaining. And so what they do is meet up on Fridays, and then they have soup in our Soups On program, and it's very immersive, and it's been wonderful. We've got LGBTQ meetings, and accessibility is a huge thing. I'll talk a little bit about our My Ride program, but it's so important that for those that have visual impairment, hearing impairment, physical disabilities that they could be included. An example is we just started tap dance, and we have several people taking that class while sitting in a chair, and they're able to be completely involved. And so it's really, really important that we're always keeping that in mind when we're designing the programs. So our My Ride program is free transportation to Sonoma Valley seniors since 2009. And part of transportation is one of the biggest problems for seniors, because when they lose the ability to drive, they isolate. And because of the pandemic, we all have experienced isolation. It's very common for seniors, whether they lose a loved one, they can no longer drive. So the My Ride program is critical. And the rides are provided by volunteer drivers. We, in 2022, 37 drivers provided almost 3,000 rides to 96 residents. And they take them to the pharmacy, to optometry appointments, grocery store, but also to Vintage House so they can come in for a meal, and they can also connect and participate and stay integrated in the community. So a few statistics for 2022, January and February, we were closed to the public, except for we did allow some people in individual rooms to participate in programs if they had a problem at home accessing Zoom. So the programs were on Zoom, and all of the meals were served curbside. We have 1,600 annual members, and in 2022, 580 classes and programs were offered, almost 7,000 participants. Now, that doesn't mean 7,000 different people came in, because some people will come to 2 or 3 classes a week. So that is some duplication there, and provided a little over 5,000 meals. So to give you an idea where we are today, we're offering over 58 programs a week, which will equal about 3,000 programs by the end of the year. Those are scheduled programs. We also offer music, authors, one-time presentations that aren't included in these numbers. And then meals. Just this last week, we provided over 200 meals in a week. So if we stay on that path and it's actually growing week by week, it's about 9,600 meals that we'll be providing at the by the end of the year. Okay, so let's talk about money. So as far as revenue, our budget for 2023 is $1.2 million. So that's about $100,000 a month to run Vintage House. And our revenue comes from a lot of different sources, membership fees, program fees. We're very thankful for Stone Hall and our commercial kitchen, because the rental of that does bring in revenue. Individual foundation giving and fundraising is about 35% of our budget. Grants is about 21%. And we're very thankful that the city of Sonoma provides funds that represent about 3% of our budget. And then, of course, having a very wonderful lease helps us to be able to keep the doors open. As far as expenses, you could imagine as a service organization and having the large facility, that the bulk of our expenses are staffing and facilities. That represents 76% of our budget. As far as expenses, our insurance went up quite a bit due to the area that we're in, so that represents 4% of our budget. And then our programs and operations are 20%. As far as capital projects, this last year, in 2022, we repaved resurfaced our parking lot, so it looks great, nice and even. And the year before that, we did a lot of work. We put in new flooring, we painted it, it looks absolutely wonderful. And also increased the technology to be able to have those that are hearing impaired or visually impaired to be able to participate in the classes. So we are looking at some additional projects this coming up next couple years, and we're going to be looking for community support as they helped us build Vintage House to be able to improve some of the areas that need improvement. Community partners could not do this without community partners. There would be no way to afford it. There's not even enough grants out there to write all this. But the City of Sonoma, the Health Center, Council on Aging, when I went to put together this list, it could have been 3 pages. So This is really just a short summary of the people that have helped us. The meal programs are critical. You imagine when we fed last week 100 and I think it was 21 people on Friday with soup. The soup's donated between Cogier, Sonoma Hills Retirement, Red Grape, Girl in the Fig. We have chefs that come in, so we purchase the ingredients, and then we have chefs that come in to volunteer to cook it. 10 gallons of soup. And the demand is getting so high, we're going to have to figure out how to meet it, but we will. Also, our programs working with Sonoma Valley Hospital, Area Agency on Aging, FISH, and other programs help us to bring in the speakers and provide the education for the seniors. So what's new? Well, I'm new. Moved in about 5 months ago. We hired a new development director, Paige Pollers-Meek, joined us about a month ago, so we're really ready to take Vintage House to the next level. I think I've written about 4 or 5 grants since I've been here. We received a grant from Catalyst, which we're extremely thankful for, a new sanitizer unit and sink to be able to keep the food programs going. So we found out about that about a week ago. Our 40th anniversary, we will let you know. We've got lots of fun events planned, and October 21st will be our huge event celebrating 40 years of Vintage House. And then we're just looking forward to increasing the services that we provide, getting out, reaching more seniors, having them connect with the community, and enhancing our programs. So we want to thank you guys for your support, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the council, for Ms. Morales? Any questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really like your 40 years logo.
Oh, thank you.
Feels like 20 years younger.
It is a very nice logo.
Very nice, yeah.
Excellent presentation, and thank you for all you do. It's wonderful to see all these numbers are just incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, I have a question regarding your project, because affordable housing always a big issue in our valley, in the city. And go back several years ago, I remember, because I was part of the SOS. SOS and the Vintage House, we got a partnership, try to coupling some of the young people and lived it into senior people, gathered together, let the senior people not feeling lonely. Do you have any recent development, or this program is still going on, or?
I am not sure, but I can get back to you. So I've been there 5 months, so I'm not familiar with that past program, but I will definitely look into it and then be able to get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, Lisa, you want to introduce our
Would you like
next contestant?
Yes. Next, I'd like to welcome Robert Demler, the Executive Director of the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation, to the podium, and you have
A clicker.
a clicker.
By going forward.
Very good.
You're going to wait for Monique to give you, or Rebecca to give you the thumbs up, and then it should work.
There we go.
Here we go.
Very good.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Mayor Lowe, Vice Mayor Gurney, Councilmember Ding, nice to see you, Councilmember Wellender, and city staff. For once, I'm up here at your invitation. Usually I invite myself up. And I want to say, to begin with, I hope I'm not criticized in this presentation like Mozart was in that movie Amadeus when he was told too many notes. I hope I don't have too many slides. So, what am I doing wrong? There we go. These are our officers and directors. Present with us tonight is our Vice President, James Titus, our secretary, Mary Ciccone, our treasurer, Mary Ciccone, and our secretary, Linda Jackson. We also have a former president who is our advisor on educational activities, Alice Duffy. Our president is home with his wife, Chip Allen and Jeannie, with COVID acquired at the film festival. And there are some other good excuses, according to AB 2449, that the others are not here. So thank God we don't have to operate that. I have a big thumb. This is why I can't text. This is Henry Maisonneuve, or probably Henri Maisonneuve, born in September of 1913 and died in September also of 1989. This is the house we enjoy thanks to the city, a nice lease with the city. In Henry's will of May 31st, 1983, he donated this house first to the city, and if the city couldn't meet his terms, he was donating it to the state parks. But the city met his terms, and he wanted to establish a museum and memorial garden, and as it was put in an article about him in the Press Democrat, a cultural center. And this is what the League has attempted to do, and we think we've achieved, thanks to the lease with the city signed in 2001. It's our headquarters, and we were founded in December of '69, a group of 25 concerned citizens led by Marge Eliason. The mission currently has changed from the original. The original mission was to contribute to the beautification of the historic plaza and the surrounding areas. For various reasons, this has been expanded, and our mission today is to educate and advocate for the preservation of historic buildings, neighborhoods, and landscapes in the city of Sonoma and in the Sonoma Valley. We signed a master lease with the city in January 2001, and at that time, major renovations on the Maisonneuve House began, led by the head of the Sonoma Valley Historical Society, and a great deal of work was done. There was a major grant from the city to get it started. But as you see, we have a master lease, a side letter agreement, a First Amendment. These need to be consolidated. Each of them became further restrictive in our activities, which we want to overturn so that we can become more self-sufficient than we are at present. The master lease expires in 2026, January. So sometime before then, and I hope sooner than then, I would like to work with the city to consolidate. The community services that the League provides is we rent the boardroom for meetings by other nonprofits. Presently, 2 nonprofits use the boardroom. That's the Sonoma Overlook Trails Stewards and the Newcomers Group. We rent the property for private events to help with our budget. We sometimes allow the gratis use of the property for a good cause. We have public research facilities in our historical survey. We provide public preservation lectures. There is one tomorrow night at the community center at 6 o'clock. All of you are invited. You are complimentary members of the league, so you can walk in and I will identify you. Alice has a very nice presentation on what is historic and what is not. We've had some community art shows. We have lowered our dues so that it's not an obstacle to anyone becoming a member of the league, but it certainly doesn't cover very much of our expenses. This is a review of our financial status as of last year. Membership fees were 7% of the revenue, donations 9%, grants were 6%, events revenue 42%, and a lease on the carriage house to the vintners and growers was 36%. So you can see we're very small compared to other nonprofits in the cities. Actually, there's an economic term called small potatoes. I think that's us. But that was our results from last year, and that's the revenue. And the expenses are more or less split between property expenses and admin and programmatic expenses for the league. And we came up with a $5,000 loss, which we cover by a procedure that I will explain in a moment. All right. Over the last several years, we've spent on maintenance alone about $26,500. There were a number of delayed maintenance issues. We had rodent abatement and new insulation in the attic, HVAC servicing, fire sprinkler system servicing, mole and vole abatement, which we're still working on, and weekly gardening services. Financial improvements to the league. Over that period, 2020 to last year, we spent over $100,000 of our money to improve your property. This money did not come from the city. It did not come from our membership, as you could have seen. It did not come from our revenue of events, and it was before we had any income from the carriage house. It came from one particular asset that we had that we sold, and that was the Hooker House. And so you can see the city's contribution. This was a required slide. So this is my attempt at, I wouldn't say humor, but I wanted to make this point. So the sale of the Hooker House was the item that really carried us through all of those improvements and maintenance, and is still our buffer to make up for the deficit like we had last year. All right, planned expenditures, one-year plan. I know you've heard my saga of the storage shed. I'm going to be asking the city for help with that. We are continuing to make garden improvements. Henry wanted a memorial garden, and we have a garden that was very nicely laid out. And we are constantly adding plants and trees as they, in the sense, live beyond their lifetime. We've done some screen installations on the carriage house. We'd like to do it on the main house as well. Now, community partnerships. We enjoy two. One is with the Sonoma Sunrise Rotary Club. The president, Cam Frazier, could not be here tonight. However, the president-elect is sitting on the dais with you. And we're very grateful to have this relationship. We also have a relationship with the sister cities And its president, George McHale, is here. And its vice president, Stephanie Fine, was here. Now, the league has helped us.
Just a reminder, Mr. Demler,
Sorry?
that blinking light, we just, yeah.
I know. You've had blinking lights
I know.
for
I'm
every
just
blinking,
I'm just
presentation.
reminding you, but because that's the rules.
I've learned to say I'm colorblind for red.
Very good.
I want to mention, we have tentative partnerships with the Vintage House from the past. We've shared our property with them, and I've spoken with the new executive director, and also one of our directors is married to one of their directors, so I think we're going to make some progress there. Also, we've done a little work with the vintners and growers who are the tenants in the carriage house. This shows a picture of the Rotary Club Sonoma Sunrise doing some maintenance work and improvement work at the league. And this shows the Sister Cities Penglai Committee having a lunch for one of the potential donors to the Ting. We've done, and we're going to be doing some work with sharing some work with the visit of the Italians coming up later in the month. So, new initiatives post-pandemic. We're reviving the Preservation Awards this fall in October. We're establishing a special garden for Sonoma Sister Cities for 7 sections for each of the 7 countries represented by those cities. We've revived the preservation lectures, thanks to Alice, and we're now committed financially to posting regular notices in the newspaper. So, I'm finished. You have questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions or comments from the council or from the public?
I just want to say thank you. Yeah, it's great to be a part of your program and greeting and receive those kind of delegates. You present in the best part of our Sonoma for
Thank
the
you.
Mason Davis House.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Demler. And we now have...
I'd like to introduce Patricia Cullinan with the Sonoma Valley Historical Society.
Yes, wonderful.
And where's the clicker? It's right there.
Yes. Welcome, Patricia.
Hi. Let's see. Okay. Thank you, Council. I really appreciate this opportunity. And we really appreciate the support of not only of the current council, but the previous councils for not only the support of the Historical Society, but the support of history in general in Sonoma. So collecting, preserving, and sharing the rich history of Sonoma Valley, that's what it's about. So I'm going to explain how we do that. We have the Depot Park Museum. Thank you very much. For finding the contract. The contract ends in 2046. It was a 25-year extension. And then we have the Marcy House Archives and Research Center. So we were founded in 1937. We provide accurate information about the history of Sonoma through lectures, exhibits, sharing information we stored at the museum and the Marcy House. And we have exhibits on many local businesses and civics groups over the years at their locations. Some of our recent exhibits, right now we have the resorts of Sonoma Valley. We had the history of baseball. There were 2 exhibits for that. Picturing the Springs and the quilts. I hope everybody saw the quilts. They were we are going to have programs about with the Chamber of Commerce about Araldi's centennial next year. And of course, there's the Mission 200. The 200th year of the mission begins in July 4th, which was the first mass at the Sonoma Mission, and it goes, the location, and it goes to actually April 4th approximately in 2024. So we're going to have some events around that. The Historical Society has been designated as the main repository for historic documents and archives in Sonoma Valley. We are uniquely able to promote the public research into our past. We had the family of the original owner of the Blue Wing today. They came from all over the United States to look at the material that we have. Interestingly enough, we have James Cooper and Sarah Bigelow Flint Cooper Harris, who was his wife. We have their wedding outfits. So just amazing things. We have Bob Parmley's collection. We have City of Sonoma historic documents. We have Pioneer collections, Vallejo. The list goes on and on. Public outreach, lectures are free to members and to docents from organizations that promote Sonoma Valley history. Otherwise, we asked for a $5 donation. The Depot Park Museum is free. The Marcy House has a part-time employee. We promote Sonoma history through social media. In the last 4 weeks, our Facebook page has reached 15,500 viewers, and post engagement was almost 5,000. So we are definitely promoting Sonoma in many ways. Equity, the museum is free. The information is information. We do not collect information about people visiting, except if their children are not. We have approximately 6,000 people who visit the museum every year, and so that I think is a way of promoting Sonoma. Our lectures, our next lecture is the translation of Mariano Vallejo's History of California from his viewpoint, 1,500 pages of recent translation, and that is going to be at the Mission Chapel on April 13th. So we also have international lecturers that speak. So Zoom is our friend. Kevin Waite was, he's at the University of Durham in England, although he wrote a very important book about slavery in the United States and its spread. It's, where'd that go? Our education program is History, Community, and Me. It's a 3rd grade social studies curriculum in which children learn about their community. We have the history videos that we promote Sonoma. The Chinese in Sonoma, the murder at the Chinese Laundry. For you guys that haven't seen it, it's quite interesting. And we have one of the Ray Adler Adobe. So financial information. We do this with one part-time employee and a budget of approximately $100,000 a year. We maintain both the buildings with all the expenses associated with that. And the city's contribution is for the buildings. We appreciate that we're able to use those buildings. The you are putting in a heater at the Depot Park Museum, and we're very grateful for that. I know it's been a long process of engineering and the RFP, and I just can't wait to be warm. So, significant in expenditures in the future. There's planned works for the repairs on the porches and the fences at the Marcy House. Okay, I've got 11 seconds. Is that it?
You're okay. We're being very generous, apparently, and we're also colorblind, apparently. So it's all good. Please continue.
Okay. We provide services to the community through the generous donation of our volunteers' time. Everything except for our part-time employee is volunteer. I am not the executive director, by the way. I'm the board president. And I have several of my board members here. George Weber is here. George McHale was on the board, and he is no longer. He's too busy with the sister cities. And Lori, of course, you all recognize her. Our funding sources are memberships, grants, and donations. And I think the next one, we have a board of directors. Rotary, I think I skipped through that. Rotary has helped us in the past. We really appreciate that. One of our community partnerships that's coming is going to be a partnership with the community center. We're planning on doing a StoryCorps where we record people's history and of their life in Sonoma, and that's very exciting. So we have, that's it. There you go. You have any questions?
Thank you so much, Ms. Cullinan. Very, very well put together. Lots of stuff there. Any questions from the council? Anything, Mr. Ding? Your light's on, so I wanted to recognize you.
Also saying a thank you. All our community are so grateful to you, to your board member, all the volunteers. Also, I'm the member for Historic Society. I believe this is also the best part for you preserve the value of our city's history. That is making our Sonoma different from other places. Thank you.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Wonderful. Well, that was those were incredible presentations. We are so fortunate in this city with everybody. And you're more than welcome to stay, but honestly, you can go if you want to. It's so good. You have our permission. Thank you. Thanks for being here. All right. Moving along, I think we are at the consent calendar. Items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and acted upon in a single motion. If there's any anyone would like to pull an item, now is the time to say so. Seeing none, any comments from the public regarding the consent calendar or on Zoom from the consent calendar?
No one's raising their hand.
Right, so nothing has been pulled, there's been no comment. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
I second.
Moved and seconded. No questions on that. Can we call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Gurney,
Yes.
Councilmember Wellander,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Thank you. Item 8.1 was put off to May 17th, and so we are at 8.2, and I will open a public hearing on updating the City of Sonoma master fee schedule. Public hearing is now open. Are there any comments from the public regarding this item? Or anyone on Zoom? Please come forward. This is the time to make your comments, Mr. Demler. Thank you.
Robert Demler, First Street West, Sonoma. Thank you. This is an uninvited comment. I spoke to this last meeting, and my interest is in having fees for nonprofits in Sonoma that reside in city property that make improvements to those properties to have their fees waived. Before I forget, I want to say I think the city is very fortunate to have the good spirit of all of your nonprofits who reside in city properties, because they, having sat through these presentations, they do a great job in maintaining your property and making improvements. I have done some research since last meeting, and I was determined to ask that you consider an amendment or whatever to this fee schedule, but I have learned also that another approach to this would be to write a letter to the mayor and the city manager to request that there be a blanket waiver for city-owned property residing nonprofits in their improvements. So I'm here to ask you to do something, but I can't possibly tell you what or how to do it. But I do think it's something that would be appreciated by all of your nonprofits. Thank you so much. I'm still in the green.
Now, how did you recognize that green? You know? Thank you so much, Mr. Demler. Any more comments from the public on this item on Zoom or anything? All right, public hearing is now closed. We have a staff report, please, on this item from Liz Garcia. Thank you.
Excuse me. As you mentioned, the council has requested a continuance from the March 15th meeting for this public hearing to adopt the resolution updating the City of Sonoma master fee schedule for the 22-23 year. I would like to mention one item that, since this was presented at the last meeting, fee PL-40, the general plan update surcharge, has been removed from this document, and that will be represented at a later time by staff. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, any questions for Ms. Garcia? Mr. Wellender, please.
I have just one, and you may not have the answer, but at some point in the future, I'd love to know. I would love to know just how well we recover our fees based on this versus expenses, or just knowing, again, of the work that is being done, what fees do we collect to recover, and then what that percentage might be. I have no specific questions regarding specific line items, but I was just curious on how effective we are in cost recovery.
Okay, I can tell you this, that we're implementing the OpenGov software, and that will give us much more information this time next year when it's fully implemented and we can see the trends. Right now, a lot of these fees are based on the research that the different department heads could do to recover the average cost.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And any more questions? I'm sorry, before I ask Mr. Dane.
I'm afraid I didn't look into this. I have last time I did have a question. Basically the fee changes for each new year. We cannot complete it just based on the inflation or the percentage. We needed to see how our customer feel and what kind of value. It's really how to we serve our client. Yeah. So it makes sense because it's a fee. That means we provided a service, and based on hourly rate for our staff working on that. But if we can consider, each of the fees, what that mean behind the visitor fee, what kind of quality service we can provide, that would be better.
Thank you, Mr. Ding. And Mr. Vice Mayor, do you have any questions? So my question goes to the points brought up by Mr. Demler. And so in your opinion, would it be easier, should we, we're going to go ahead and pass these fees for the individual nonprofits to write a letter requesting a waiver? And, should they not put in a request for a waiver, we'll just assess them appropriately? Or would it be better to deal with it at this time? What is your opinion on that?
Do you want me to go ahead and answer? Or I would say, in my opinion, council can always reduce any of the fees. These are first proposed by staff. We've done studies that this is the average cost, so you can't go higher than that. But council can always choose to go lower than that. And you can also choose the process to do that.
So administratively, I mean, I'm not interested in raising or lowering, that's not my expertise, that's yours, and I trust you to do that. But I am curious as to what would be the best procedure for, if a nonprofit feels like, they're making an improvement and they'd like to request a waiver, can they just submit a waiver? Can it be ministerially approved by the city manager? That's my question. Perhaps Mr. Linder could answer that, or the city attorney could answer that.
I think we could handle it administratively, if that's the wish of the council, which is what I'm hearing, kind of. But I think we can handle it administratively. That second option that Mr. Demler talked about.
Right, okay. Because in other words, I don't want to change what we have now, but yeah.
But I understand what
Right.
you're attempting to do.
I'm
This
just
is
asking the question.
Inside city facilities, operated and renovated by a nonprofit organization. Okay.
So if they submit it, but we're not going to do a blanket thing. It had to be submitted, would be my question. Okay.
Yeah, to me, I think that would work.
Mr. Gurney.
Well, I just wanted to make sure, because last time we had this conversation, Mr. Demler was referring specifically to building permit fees. And therein lies, when Wayne Wyrick stated that the city pays permit fees, it's safe to assume that we're building on city-owned property or whatever the project is. And so I'm not sure what the rationale is, and then the question that's be asked is, why does the city pay building fees on our projects?
So there's a couple different reasons why the city would pay. One being so that the correct department or fund is being charged those fees. As you know, there are several funds that are restricted of what they can use the monies for. So that would be one reason. The other reason would be, like Mr. Wyrick explained, if there's a grant and we could get reimbursed grant monies and we just immediately waive those fees, we could not then later be reimbursed for those fees. So the city would be losing out on some of the fee income that we would otherwise receive.
Thank you. Okay, I believe my question has been answered. Any other further questions or comments?
I have a question regarding last time we mentioned about appeal fees. Because we spend in the same hour, we charge in the locally here, and the cheaper $100, or charge the Napa's developer in the $400. Do you have any feedback from the developer? They say, oh, that is not fair, or something like that.
I personally have not heard of anything.
Okay.
Probably those discussions would have gone to the planning and building department.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. If we have no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'd like to maintain a motion to approve the updating of the master fee schedule for fiscal year 2022-23.
Thank
I
you.
second.
And seconded, and no questions on the motion. We'll have a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Gurney,
Yes.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Thank you. Very good. All right, we're on to the next thing, which looks like a lot of fun. We're going to look at our commissions.
Can we have 5? Would that be possible?
Yeah, absolutely. We want a 5-minute break? Is that what I'm hearing? Absolutely. We are in recess for 5 minutes. Thank you.
I thought Madeline had retired. posted the meeting.
So we are at the agenda where we have a couple of commissions where we're going to have the opportunity to make some appointments tonight. So let's start with the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission. We are looking for one youth member and one arborist. And we already have our direct appointments. So what I'm looking for is if anybody has a motion. Let's start with the arborist. If anyone has a motion for any of the people who have submitted.
I would be happy to make a motion to support the arborist that has submitted his application. I had a chance to interview him today, and I'm happy to report that he wants to save trees, and I like that.
All right. That sounds like a motion for Mr. John Meserve. Okay.
Second.
There's a second. Any questions on that? Any comments from the public on that? Okay. If not, we'll call the roll on the appointment of Mr. Meserve as the arborist.
Vice Mayor Gurney,
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
We also have an opportunity to appoint a youth member. I note that none of the youth members that applied have indicated their interest in the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. Is there one, Madam Clerk?
Actually, the individuals who are in this group all,
Oh, I see how,
it's a little
okay.
confusing on the youth members.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So any of those people, well, I'm glad to hear that. I'd like to, if no one else has somebody, I'd like to make you have someone in mind from the list? I was going to make a motion for, because we can have someone from the Valley on that one, is that correct? To make a motion for Jared Mellinger.
I
Second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Third.
Third? Okay. All right, can we call a roll, please?
Vice Mayor Gurney,
Yes.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Wonderful. All right, so we're on to the Planning Commission, and we can have a youth member. And I see two people have applied to have indicated that they would be interested in Planning Commission. And does anyone have a recommendation based on the people who have come forward? Or a motion?
Not Jared.
Not Jared, because he's just been appointed, correct? We have Sophia or Mary. I'd like, well, if no one has a preference, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mary. She's going to be going into Sonoma High in the fall, and the Planning Commission, to me, takes a lot of knowledge, and it seems like she would have some time to be on it and learn. And I spoke to her family, and she's very interested. So I'd like to make a motion that Mary Miller is appointed to the Planning Commission.
I second.
Okay. All right. Ed, call the roll, please.
Mayor Lowe, if I may, can
Yes,
we
please.
ask that appointment be effective tomorrow, since that is her birthday when she's actually
Yeah,
going to be 14?
absolutely.
Oh, perfect. Thank
Effective
you.
tomorrow. Happy
you.
birthday, Mary. You're now on the Planning Commission. Will you ever forgive me? Yes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Gurney,
Yes.
Councilmember Wellender.
Yes.
Councilmember Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Thank you. Thank you so much for pointing that out, too. All right, we're at the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Ding because he has a direct appointment, I believe. And
Yes.
we'd like to hear who
All
that
right.
will be.
Mine former direct appointed Tim Curry, and for some his personal reason, and withdraw from the commission. So that is good. Yeah, we have a lot of the good candidates, and right now, and I had already interviewed with Scott Van, and he is a retired and a multinational executive, and also is a truly musician, and he has a showtime in an English Murphy pub. That is wonderful. He familiar with the local and music area.
Great.
And yes, and also what impressed me a lot is, and he called me and complain about the trees in the 5th Street and 5th Street West and MacArthur. Big trees, eucalyptus trees have been moved. He felt very, very bad. He said, who take care? He said, you are a city council member. Can you help me? I said, definitely. I sent him to Michael Berger. But at the same time, I encourage him. I said, you have very positive gesture. Maybe you can become a part of our city. So I offered to him, I interview him. He's qualified. Also, he's very passionate. I want to point to him.
Well, that's your appointment. We don't even need a vote. You get to pick. So there you go. Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
I also was able to talk to the one of the members of the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission who recommended that we would consider as an alternate Meredith Knudsen, who has a lot of ability to put large public projects together. She works in Napa and has been involved in the cultural activities that have gone on in Napa, many of which I'm very jealous to see, like all the lighted buildings and all of that. So I'd like to make a motion to, as the alternate, approve Meredith Knudsen based on the recommendation from the, yes, please. Yeah.
But before you do that, I just want to bring to the attention that because if you do that, you would have to waive the residency requirement for the alternate, that they're required to be a city resident.
Oh, I see.
With the
She's a
understanding
Valley
that
resident.
if they stepped in for for someone other than Mayor or Councilmember Dean's person, that you might be out of compliance with the municipal code. But I spoke with the city attorney, and I don't know if he has any thoughts that he wants to add, or if you have questions on that.
Right, so the code says that you can have one person who's from the valley. So that's why the policy that we have for alternates says the alternate is supposed to be a resident. So if there's already a valley representative, for
I
example,
see.
Scott, and then somebody else other than Scott can't make it, then the alternate could fill the resident role. So that's the issue. The question of the risk is a separate question. What happens, if if we were dealing with the council, we'd be talking about a potentially invalid approval. The council makes decisions that are binding. The Cultural and Fine Arts Commission likely not, is going to only be making recommendations. So query whether the risk of having one person who's two Valley residents essentially voting is a big enough risk to prevent the council from moving forward with this applicant. That's really up to the council to weigh those risks.
I'm not particularly risk averse, but question, Mr.
No, it's not. It's more of a statement. It seems like these three have expressed interest. They happen to all be in the valley. And I think that if those that were within the city had the same opportunity, I'm not sure I recognize the shortcoming, and I certainly would like to support someone who actually has expressed interest to contribute. So I'd have no problem having a valley alternate, even should she take the place of a city person.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. Are you okay with that, Mr. Vice Mayor?
I suppose.
Close enough. Sounded like, I suppose, is a good enough agreement.
Yeah, I mean, it's, what is the Cultural and Fine Arts Committee, what kind of decisions are they making? They're deciding on
What paintings to
what
hang
paintings
in
to
the.
hang. So these
things
aren't
like that.
necessarily decisions that are going to.
It's not like the planning commission, for example.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, I've made a motion. Is anyone with the caveat that we're waiving the whatever?
Oh, yeah, I second.
Oh, and we have a second. Okay. Ms. Barr, call the roll.
Thank you for that. Vice Mayor
Yes.
Gurney? Councilmember Wellender?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Lowe?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
And without objection, we have one person who has applied to be a youth member. Without objection, I'd like to see that person be appointed. All right, without objection, Mario Aliotto, I believe would be the third, is appointed. So we're on to design review. We're looking for one non-voting youth member. And Mary has been appointed and Jared has been appointed. So do we have,
I'm sorry, wasn't he appointed originally? Jared?
He was appointed to the planning.
to
pros.
the pros committee?
Sorry.
Mhm. That was his second choice. I suppose we could go back on that and put him here and put someone else, but there was no one for pros, so. And I think having a youth member on pros is really important.
I thought all of the individuals, the youth members were interested in pros. The
Oh, I see what you're
ones
saying.
listed were their other
Other
choices.
ones. I got it. Okay, so that's good. All right, so, so we have Sofia de Torres and Sarah Juhaz, I'm sure I'm mangling that somehow, who have not been appointed to anything. Would anyone be interested in making a motion for either of those young ladies?
So Jared was the only one who actually expressed interest in the design review.
As a second choice.
That was his second choice.
But he got on pro, which was his
Right,
first choice. I get it.
Sophia and Sarah, their first choice was also pros. Sophia's second choice was planning. Sarah's second choice was climate
action. So design review to me has a little bit more to do with planning. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that. And so I'm just going to sort of interpret that. So Sophia might be more interested. This might be something more interesting. So I'm going to make a recommendation that we appoint Sofia de Torres. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right. And we'll call the roll on that.
Vice Mayor Gurney?
Yes.
Councilmember Wellender?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Lowe?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Okay. All right, we're down to the Traffic Safety Commission, and apparently there's an order because we haven't appointed anybody at this point. So, yes,
Only
Yeah.
Councilmember Ding.
Yeah.
you have appointed
Yes.
someone. Okay, who have you appointed, Mr. Ding?
It's Mark Domeno. He's been
Yes.
on for,
Okay.
it's
I
in
see.
center.
Very good. All right, so I'm next, and I would like to appoint Adam Lobsinger.
Yeah.
Well, he's a great guy. I know Mr. Lobsinger. Vice Mayor Gurney, you're next.
I will appoint Gregory Benson. I'm sorry, Brennan.
Gregory Brennan, very good. And Mr. Wellender.
Well, this is a 5-member appointment, correct?
Mhm.
Commission? And so basically.
Microphone?
So basically, we're just picking. So I'll recommend Mark Branconi.
Mark Branconi, okay?
Branconi.
All right, and when Ms. Rivas is back next time, we'll put it back on the agenda, and, you know, she'll have someone to choose from, and, you know, maybe other people will have applied by then, or, you know, whatever, but we'll move right along. Okay, great. Okay, we're back at, thank you for that, that's wonderful. I think we have all committees moving. Next one, consideration, yes, question, please.
Yeah, can we just go back for a second and we had to search the bushes for people that were interested in traffic. And I'm just thinking that with your appointment plus the 4 that's on the agenda, that makes the complete commission. I would like to suggest possibly just consideration that because interest was expressed, that, and even though Patricia's not here, that either we give her the opportunity to support Janie Mullis and not necessarily open it back up.
Yeah,
Would that be-
I think you're right, absolutely. No, we'll do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Thank you for that.
You'll still need your alternate and your non-voting youth member.
Okay.
Which we didn't have anyone.
We didn't have
apply for
anyone,
those
so
positions.
we'll take, perhaps at that point, we'll have some people, they can be alternates and so forth. Great. And considering how many emails we get about traffic all the time, it's just a wonder to me, again, why no one wants to be on.
Can I make one other public comment? I
Please.
think we owe some gratitude to a planning commissioner by the name of Matt Wyrick, which was the one out beating the bushes.
Yeah,
And I think was able to come up with these.
yes,
So-
absolutely. Thank you, Matt, wherever you are. Great. So the next is possible action to review letters of interest received and give directions to Mayor Loa, her designee, regarding nominations for appointees to regional commissions and committees on behalf of the Mayors and Council Members Association of Sonoma County and the City Selection Committee. I'll turn this over to you, Madam Clerk, to let us know if there's any controversies there. I think there were just one appointments, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, there are no controversies that I've heard. Everyone had a person apply except for the North Bay Division rep. And then the Airport Land Use Commission also did not have anyone apply, but the other seats, I believe, were all uncontested as far as how many seats there were available and how many were turned in. This meeting is a little different than in the future. Normally it's held on the second Thursday of the month, but for whatever reason, the host city, I believe they were having an issue with quorum. They did change it to April 20th. So.
Okay, and I will not be able to be there on April 20th, and I think somebody is going in my stead. Mr. Vice Mayor, thank you. Seeing that the number of applicants is equal to the number of positions, I believe it's kind of a moot point to discuss these any further, but to give direction that to agree to these appointments. Is there anyone have anything different to say about that? These people want to be on there. They want to travel back and forth to Santa Rosa and not be on Zoom. not use AB 2449 and pile up the vehicle miles traveled. I think we should let them. All right. Okay. Is that good enough for everybody? Everyone understand that? That's good. Okay. Moving on. Consideration, discussion, possible actions to adopt a resolution authorizing the interim city manager to execute a letter of engagement with Baker Tilly US LLP in an amount not to exceed $50,000 to provide expert finance advisory services needed to complete prior year's audits and develop the city's fiscal year budget. Mr. Linder.
Yes, Madam Mayor and council members, I bring this to your attention and seek your support. We, as indicated, that we had the Assistant City Manager Administrative Services position that's been vacant since December. We have not filled any of that, yet the work continues to need to be done. Once I saw how far behind we were getting in a number of areas, I used the discretionary amount that I have of up to $25,000 to bring some professional staff in to assist. As indicated here, we did engage Baker Tilly and their lead consultant, Noemi Barter. We ended up spending much more time than I anticipated getting things squared away with the Sonoma Valley Fire District. They needed for their audit completion the number of what we owed them, and we finally settled on it, but it took a while. Noemi took the lead on that to kind of get it finished. So we have other things that still need being done. We need these audits, our audits, that aren't complete, and we also need to do the budget adjustments so that can come forward to you as a mid-year adjustment next council meeting. And we have the budget we want to bring to you, but we need the information that you deserve and need about where are we now with our revenues, our expenditures according to budget, and where are we looking forward to. So I've asked for, since I don't want to keep coming back, I've asked for an up to $50,000. A big number, I know. I show you in here how that can be covered by the approved budgets that we have now. So no additional scrambling for money. We may well not use that full amount. I also may use some of that amount to take a look at the structural adjustments that you've asked me to look at organizationally. So the project manager for the finance department side is our assistant to the city manager, Jenny, and she's been doing person work getting this covered and really dedicating a lot of time. I kind of get reports from her and from Liz, but she's the driving force behind it as well as Liz. And I also have met with the staff to validate that they are struggling and behind and want to get caught up. My goal is to have all of this caught up before I leave, so that I don't hand it to the council and the new city manager, and also to have it set up so that it will not happen again, at least while we're all here. So that's my request, and I'm happy to answer questions about that.
Are there any questions for the city manager? Sir.
Just a couple, Mark. The consulting firm is a large one. I see it's and which is great, and I believe their expertise is right in their wheelhouse. The one thing I did see that was under the lead consultant, the manager, and this is not a judgment, but she has could be less than 1 year with the firm. And so I just want to bring that up.
No, that's good. And the reason that we were interested in her is that she has the experience in government, finance, government accounting that we needed.
Great.
So we didn't have to train her. I don't need to give that to Liz too.
Great. No,
that's a very good question. That's good.
And then the last question, which is, And I believe you've answered it too.
That's right.
It will be up to the new city manager to kind of determine the structure and the hierarchy of how the finances are now going to be
But
addressed.
we'll be, as you have asked us to ask me and our colleagues on the staff to bring forth to you a recommendation about structure.
Right, right.
We will bring forth the recommendation, but yes, it will be up for the city manager to implement that or recommend it to you or whatever.
Okay.
And we will be having recommendations in this area to prevent this from happening again.
Thank you.
At least I hope so. But good questions.
Mr. Ding.
It is required for our financial statement to be audited, certified, right?
Yes, we need to have a real audit.
Yeah.
And it needs to be certified. Yes.
And this position couldn't fulfill this kind of the task or
Yes.
requirement. Okay.
And there's backup help if we need it. We have people who've worked now in government as backup to particularly help with the budget adjustment area and getting the mid-year cleared up and ready to go. But Noemi will be the kind of the project manager for the consulting firm. And Jenny will be the staff person here. But yes, we need to get these, we're behind, we do not want to be behind in audits in the state of California. It's not a good idea, so we need to get those caught up. But there are other resources that she can draw on, as indicated by Councilmember Wellender. There are resources inside this firm. And they've merged with Management Partners, which was a firm that was completely from government sector. And they wanted that additional work of people who have a lot of experience in government. It's a different kind of accounting. It's just that way. And we really looked hard to find a firm that could help us in the government accounting world. It's a good question also.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I would like to make a motion.
Hang on.
Oh,
No,
public comment.
public comment.
Public comment, that was it.
Any public comment on Zoom? Thank you so much for reminding me. None. Okay.
I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing interim the city manager to execute the letter of engagement with Baker Tilly US LLP in amount not to exceed $50,000.
Okay, that's been moved by Mr. Ding. Is second?
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kearney,
Yes.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Mayor Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 401.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a commission and committee roster for information, and we are now at adjournment. Seeing no one in objection, we are adjourned.